You ready? All right. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. Welcome to the June 13, 2024 meeting of the Shawnee County Board of County Commissioners. My name is Kevin Cook. I serve as the chair this year. Joining me today is Commissioner Aaron Mays. Good morning.
Good morning.
Commissioner Bill Rippon.
Good morning.
Our County Councilor, Mr. Eckert.
Good morning.
And then Madam Clerk, Miss Cindy Beck. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, we have a packed room, so let's get started, Miss Clerk.
Okay, our first item is item 3, consent agenda.
There's a number of items on the consent agenda. Are there any questions or is there a motion?
I'll move for approval. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed, it passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item 4, new business. Item A, County Clerk number 1, consider all voucher payments.
I'll move for approval. Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed, passes 3-0. Our next item.
There are no correction orders. We had a certified value, so the appraiser's office was taken off, so they're back on, but we'll have correction orders next week again.
Sounds good. All right. Our next item.
Oh, I'm sorry. I messed up there.
Well,
On the, sorry, can I go back and
Oh,
just,
could you-
point of order real quick? I got mixed up on the correction orders and the voucher payments.
Oh.
Yeah, sure.
Vouchers today were totaling $3,692,460.71. The one item of note on there is to Cindy and Company for $521,612.66, and that is for courthouse renovations, which is now 82% as of April, the end of April. So,
Okay. And
sorry
then-
about that.
And we have approved the vouchers as
Yes.
presented. All right. Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for B1.
Okay, item B, Planning Department number 1, public hearing and consider approval of Home Rule Resolution number HR 2024-4, first reading, Solar Energy Conservation System Project 1-year moratorium.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joni Fidani, Director of the Planning Department. Okay, so we are here today on the proposal for the amendment to the Shawnee County zoning regulations, whereby we would implement a 1-year moratorium on all limited community scale and commercial utility scale solar energy conversion systems and projects in all zoning district classifications within unincorporated Shawnee County. This would not include personal or smaller accessory scale solar energy projects. Those are a lot of big words, and so my recommendation to anybody is that you look to not only our resolution, but also to the definitions within my staff report, because it sets forth exactly what each of those items means. I do want to point out that the personal, small, or accessory scale solar projects would be ones that someone wanted to do on their own property to support their own house. So just to be clear, that this would not prevent people from going ahead and installing solar panels on their home. There are some businesses who come to us who wish to install solar panels to support their business. So long as they support the on-site use of the property itself, those would still be able to move forward. They do not fall under the moratorium. The purpose of this moratorium would be to allow the Shawnee County Planning Department and the Shawnee County Planning Commission to conduct necessary research on solar farms. It would allow us to make appropriate findings, reach a formal long-range decision regarding solar energy, and then come back in front of you either with the proposal to also ban those, or in the alternative, to approve regulations that would allow for different types of solar farms. Just a short timeline of how we got here. Back in '22, if you recall, we had a couple of solar farm conditional use permit applications. At that time, there was a lack of direction because we don't have specific regulations, and there was a lot of concern addressed to me about how we handle these, what do we do, what if we're missing something? And that came from both the Planning Commission and some of the Board of County Commissioners. And it's uncomfortable when you don't really know, because we haven't dealt with it before, how to handle something. And so at that time, there were discussions about getting regulations put into place. We began our review back in '23, researching regulations in Kansas, nearby areas. I made contact with other counties and jurisdictions. I obtained regulations from various places. We did legal research. We also invited speakers to come to the Planning Commission meetings, both in favor of solar farms and against solar farms. We wanted to get a broad range of information to present to the Planning Commission for their consideration. We did a community survey at the end of 2023, and we continued our research and speakers. And then in December of 2023, a motion was made at the Planning Commission to move forward with the consideration of a one-year moratorium. At that time, I began preparing for public hearings. We got the reports all ready and had our public hearing in May 2024, which leads us to why we are here today. So what is a moratorium? A moratorium is an interim development control mechanism. It is a temporary prohibition of an activity. It preserves the status quo. It allows a reasonable amount of time, and case law has even indicated that 3 years, 4 years could be a reasonable amount of time. At this point, we're asking for just a one-year moratorium. It allows time to research, consider, make findings, draft regulations. It has been found that a moratorium is an appropriate use of your power to ensure that we can get proper regulations in place. County Commission authority, of course, you have your home rule authority in 19101. In 2004, a charter resolution was passed exempting the county from Chapter 12 planning statutes, and then so we fall under Chapter 19 statutes. In 2005, we were deemed an urban county, and so everything that I do in my office, we look at Chapter 19 under the urban county planning statutes to determine how to move forward, and 192960 gives us the authorization to adopt zoning regulations and then amend them from time to time. So what you're doing here today is amending zoning regulations that were passed back in 2006. A lot of times when I'm in front of you, you're here to do what's called a quasi-judicial action. You're considering a conditional use permit or a specific zoning application. In this case, you're doing legislative action. You're writing policy, you're writing law, you're changing our regulations. A lot of times you hear us talk about the golden factors. Typically, those apply to quasi-judicial actions. They do apply to some degree with legislative actions, but it doesn't necessarily fall under the golden case law. So my staff findings, if you look specifically to my staff report, I think it's pretty well set out within. A moratorium is an acceptable use of interim development control. It will allow us time to decide how we need to move forward, and this additional time is not unreasonable. Solar energy conversion systems are very technical in nature. It's very complicated, it's hard to understand, and so we don't want to rush this process. We want to make sure that whatever regulations we put into place are correct. The Planning Commission did meet Monday, May 13 at Great Overland Station. There was a public hearing that night. Approximately, I would just estimate, probably 125, 150 people were in attendance. I could be short, I could be big. 13 people did get up and make public comments in regards to the solar moratorium. We received, however, lots of emails, thousands of petitions, phone calls. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the staff recommendation 5-0. So my recommendation to you today is that we move forward with the approval of a one-year moratorium on all limited commercial scale solar energy conversion systems. And I would point out that the existing solar farms that you approved back in 2022 would not fall under this moratorium. They can continue to operate under the conditions of their conditional use permit, and then again, the personal would not be included. And I will stand for any questions.
Okay. Questions for Ms. Donnie? Commissioner Mays?
So the two solar farms that were approved under conditional use permits, if after a year you come back and the regulations are such that they're no longer in compliance, do they have to modify their sites? I know that process for both of those took quite a while, especially the one on Auburn Road, with the setbacks and the screening and the proximity to the house next door and all of that. Is there a risk there that we're gonna have to go back and redo those, or are they grandfathered in?
Nope, there's absolutely a risk. If you think back to the meeting when that was approved, we actually added a condition that should solar regulations be created and come into play, that they would have to comply with those regulations. And so there's a risk that they would not comply with whatever regulations we put into place. I think my position on that would be we would have to evaluate it at the time based on whatever we decide with future regulations. And we would probably have to reconsider whether they would be exempt from specific regulations. Say, for instance, a setback. If we set a 1,000-foot setback and they can't comply with that, it may force them to tear down existing solar panels that they would not be able to replace. And so I think that we would have to consider whether or not we would have to give them an exemption or some sort of modified allowance.
Okay, and then what about the solar farm at the VA hospital? Is that subject to a different set of rules?
It is subject to a different set of rules, because it falls within the city limits. And so anything within the city limits of the city of Topeka would not be dictated under our moratorium, because we are only looking at this moratorium in the unincorporated county. I also believe that there may be some differences because that's federal land that they may not even, I don't know that for sure, but I believe that there's a different set of rules because it's federal ground.
Okay, thank you.
That brings up an excellent point, that there is a division between cities and counties. That cities are able to regulate themselves as they see fit, right?
Correct.
So the city of Topeka can adopt whatever rules they want regarding solar or wind, if that was something they wanted to take up. Same with the city of Rossville or Silver Lake.
Absolutely. They absolutely could.
Okay. So what we're really only looking at are those unincorporated areas of Shawnee County.
Yeah. The only difference I would point out is if any of those cities were on a parcel of land that fell outside of their city limits in the unincorporated Shawnee County area, whereby they wanted to put a solar farm to support their system or their city, it would potentially fall under our regulations if it's not city annexed land.
Okay. And just to be clear, the moratorium is not saying that we are banning, but we are reviewing and examining.
Correct.
Okay. It's also not saying that we are wide open. We're, again, looking at what the best use and regulations would be.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Commissioner Rickman? Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Donnie? Okay.
Move that we open the public hearing?
Motion
Or
to-
the,
Yeah.
yeah. Public hearing.
Motion made by Commissioner Mays to open the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion seconded by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed. Passes 3-0. We are now in a public hearing. We're going to do this in two different ways. First, we're going to take anybody that is speaking in favor of a moratorium. If you are able to come to the podium, please state your name so the clerk can record that, and then you'll be able to make your statement. Anybody in favor of a moratorium? Come on up.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity this morning. My name is Karine Kane. I live just south of Auburn, and I also support the moratorium. I think that Joni Thadani has gone to a lot of work, research, and certainly wants to do this in the correct way for Shawnee County residents, and so I definitely support the moratorium, and I'm hoping eventually for a ban. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Linnell Griffith, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. And I, too, want to commend the Planning Commission for their extensive research. Great job on that. I just wanted to say, as you're considering big solar, think of fires and think of hail. Just consider that as you take this year. Particularly with fires, I think a lot of us do controlled burns for better pasture land for cattle or livestock, and that can get out of hand really quickly. So consider the damage that hail and fire could do and how quickly that can happen outside of our control. And just also consider the land that it could take out of, that would take out of food production, which I think is a very serious issue as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals wanting to speak in favor of the ban?
The moratorium.
Or moratorium, thank you, sorry. Anybody that's opposed to a moratorium? Oh, I'm sorry.
in favor.
I'm sorry, all right, sorry.
Hey, young man, how are you? Good. And you? Pretty good. Henry McClure, Shawnee County, Kansas. I'm in favor of the moratorium. We need to study this more. I think there's some good points. I support the findings of the Shawnee County Planning Commission. Thank you for the opportunity.
Hi, my name is Mark Galbraith. I live at 1230 Southwest College. Thank you for this opportunity. Maybe I'm confused, but I support the moratorium as well because I assume it's moratorium or ban. And no one said that, but I assume that's where we are. And the moratorium is to be put in place for a year to give the county time to study so they could develop good regulations that are both protective, but also, I hope, not so restrictive that they would dissuade potential developers from coming into our county and creating a utility scale or industrial scale solar farm. So in that respect, I support the moratorium. Does that sound right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, Mr.
All right, great. And I do so because, scientists have been telling us for decades now that, that our planet is heating up, and that it's heating up because we've been burning fossil fuels. And that we're going to see a change in our climate, climate change, and I think we're already seeing that. Many more floods, not necessarily here, but across the United States, Florida, and across the world. Longer droughts, deeper droughts, more forest fires, et cetera, et cetera. You've all seen the news, I know. And scientists also tell us that we need to do something or it's going to get worse. So what do we do? Well, they say the one thing we must do is stop burning fossil fuels. Stop burning fossil fuels. A tall order since we depend on fossil fuels every day to do a great deal of just our daily activities. But there are alternatives thanks to science and technology. And two of those alternative sources of energy that are showing real promise are solar and wind. And there's a good example, and that is Douglas County, that just recently approved a building permit, or a PUD, to allow Evergy to come in and create a 600-acre solar farm. And it's estimated that that solar farm will create enough energy to provide the electricity needs of 30,000 households in Douglas County. 30,000, that's really significant. That's the way we move away from using fossil fuels. We won't do it overnight, but if we can make that decision and move it forward, and other counties can do the same, we can really make progress, I think. And I believe it's true that creating energy from solar panels is less expensive than doing it from fossil fuels. So, there's another plus there, a big plus for consumers. So anyway, that's why I support the moratorium, and again, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Vicki Arnett. I live in Topeka, and I'm the co-chair of the League of Women Voters of Topeka, Shawnee County Climate Study Committee. The League has undertaken the task of writing a position on climate change, which will include the steps that Topeka, Shawnee County government, businesses, and residents may take to adapt and mitigate the impact of climate change. The League supports the development of alternative energy sources on a personal, community, and utility scale. We do oppose the utility scale wind development ban and the utility scale solar moratorium. We recommend regulating wind and solar development by protecting specific places and resources throughout the county. This approach allows the Planning Commission to utilize the conditional use permitting process to approve or disapprove any future proposed projects. Due to the manner in which Shawnee County has developed over the last 30 years, we believe that protecting specific places through regulation will allow for very little opportunity for wind development and increase the possibility for solar installations. A total ban on wind development will have a negative impact on energy technology, research and development, innovation for generations to come. The U.S. energy sector is currently moving forward to strengthen the power grid to allow for the addition of more alternative energy sources to be sold to the grid. We believe that the proposal of the moratorium proposal is unnecessary and may create a missed opportunity for economic development. I would also remind the Commission that personal solar installation, even community solar installation, only serve me, the homeowner, and my ability to send power to the grid. It reduces my cost. It does nothing for our community. The only thing that will develop lower cost energy and alternative energy projects, probably in this county, is the development of solar. The League encourages the Commission to vote no on the ban and the moratorium and direct the Planning Commission to develop stringent regulation. Mitigating the impacts of climate change can only happen locally with your actions. Thank you for your time and your service.
And again, just to note where we're at, we're just talking about solar at this point, and we're talking about those in favor of a moratorium. Kind of jumped ahead of us a little bit, Mr. Arnett, but it's okay. Is there anyone else wanting to speak for a moratorium? Okay. Those wanting to speak against a moratorium, Ms. Arnett, you've already gone, but is there anybody else wanting to speak against a moratorium? Okay.
A lot of my comments are going to be kind of mixed between wind and solar. I didn't really make the determination to separate them at the time, but I could always come back later. My name is Jonathan Smith. I live at 2526 Southeast Colorado on the east side of Topeka. The Shawnee County Planning Commission will be recommending to you to ban wind farms and place a one-year moratorium on solar arrays. I'm asking you to not approve that ban and moratorium recommendation. Here are several things to keep in mind. Shawnee County receives almost no applications for wind farms and very few for solar arrays at the industrial or community level. So our current system of applying for a CUP or a conditional use permit, which entails speaking to the planning department, alerting the surrounding public to the application of the project, speaking to the planning commission in front of the impacted public, attempting to address all presented concerns within the application with the planning department and the applicant before finally going back to the planning commission is already a high enough barrier that it seems pointless to institute a ban or a moratorium. Declaring a ban or a moratorium on wind or solar technologies in Shawnee County while other counties already have active installations and regulations makes it look like we do not know what we are doing at the county level. The Planning Commission could just as easily write strict regulations on the industries and functionally, in practical terms, ban them without having statewide newspapers embarrassing our county for declaring a ban when other counties have already been able to regulate and administrate such installations without large issues or serious controversy. We are living in a time where we must be actively doing everything we can to decarbonize our energy systems, to get away from fossil fuel technologies, and this is just one more step backwards in the fight against global climate change. I'm not going to stand up here and explain climate change. Tens of thousands of scientists across over 100 countries have been able to prove to the global scientific community that humans were likely driving global thermal rise in climate temperature since 2007. They upgraded that certainty to very likely in 2011, and the data has only been more and more damning with every report. Climate change doesn't care if you believe in it. We, our children, and our grandchildren will have to deal with it regardless of your feelings about the findings. The data is readily available and free. Just go read it in the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change report for the past 20 years. There are literally thousands of pages of data. We have the power to regulate and professionally administer local renewable energy technologies, cleaning up local air and our energy grid. And every step backwards towards fossil fuel dependency is another nail in the coffin of our grandchildren. If you don't like hearing it, stop being a part of the problem. Finally, there are so very few properties where wind farms or solar arrays would even be possible to be situated in the county, specifically wind in that aspect, that it seems almost laughable to ban an industry that may never find itself wanting to come here in the first place. Let's look at the two operating solar arrays in Shawnee County. Crooked Post Solar Array at 41st and Auburn. It's 18 acres of solar array, 70 acres if you include the massive substation that's there. Kiro Solar Farm on Northwest 35th between Huxman and Landon is 13 acres of solar array, 14 and a half if you include the very small substation. I spent a few hours researching how much one of these smaller solar arrays can generate, and it looks to be between 1 and 1.5 megawatts, which is somewhere between 150 to 250 homes powered. Remember, these solar arrays are small enough to fit on a single plot of land. 13 or 28 acres is a little small in country terms, meaning this one person's land is generating enough power for the adjacent 200 homes if done correctly. 1 to 200. Douglas County approved the CUP for the Kansas Sky Energy Center on April 13th of this year. This was brought up earlier. That project is 1,100 acres, 660 of which to be directly used for solar arrays. They expect that this will power 30,000 homes. And I read through the CUP of this project. Ecological impact accounted for. Wildlife impact accounted for. Agricultural impact accounted for. Wildlife impact accounted for. It should be noted that this project took multiple applications in Douglas County to be approved, and that's how it's supposed to work. We are supposed to write the regulations to protect the county and the citizenry. The most logical course of action should be to write the regulations to protect homeowners and landowners. And if a company can meet those regulations and find a specific enough parcel of land to be profitable, then what are we doing here? When it comes to the moratorium specifically, if this is in service of finding solutions for additional solar arrays in the county, then I'm not happy with the decision for it to make it 1 year long. It certainly could have been shorter, but it's better than a ban. It seems like we are implying that the planning department is incapable of writing regulations in less than a year, and that seems insulting, but I didn't come up with the 1 year length. Remember, every day that we are pumping CO2 and methane into the atmosphere is another 12 years of being up there for methane and potentially hundreds of years for CO2. They are working on technologies to pull that out of the atmosphere, but we are not there yet. It is much, much easier and much more affordable to just stop pumping it up there in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other individuals wanting to speak against a moratorium? Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing and then for discussion.
I'll second that.
Motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Public hearing is now closed. The pleasure of the commission?
Well, I just wanted to make a few comments. So, we do have the two solar farms right now, which you're right, they're small by industrial standards, for sure. There was a lot of work that went into those two. Our planning department has 2 or 3 employees right now. To consider a conditional use permit for anything that comes to us is very labor intensive. And without regulations in place, it makes it even more labor intensive. I think it's important that we separate wind from solar in this discussion. I think if a ban were presented for both today, I think I would probably ask for it to be separated because they're completely different. I think the people that develop these solar arrays also like to come into a community that has regulations already in place. It's a lot easier for them when they know the game that they're playing. And so typically, I think moratoriums are a waste of time because you're taking action to say that you're not going to take action until you take action again. And usually that is, redundant. And kind of the thing that people don't like about governments is the redundancy, the bureaucracy. And so in this case, I was hesitant to look at a moratorium, but after kind of looking at this, I think 1 year for our planning department to put some good regulations in place regarding, setbacks from structures, screening that's required from roadways and other houses nearby. That type of thing to regulate the size, the maximum size, the minimum size, to classify it as whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to go into this, and we can't just steal it from another community's regulations because we're not another community. We're Shawnee County, and we have to have things that are appropriate for Shawnee County. And we want to have public input. We want to have input from, the energy companies that would do this, that would bring these. Ultimately, I don't know what the outcome is going to be, but I do think that we need some time to look at it. And the moratorium tells those companies out there that we are looking at it and that, they need to wait a year before they can present an application to us. And if they want to be part of the regulation-making process, they can, just like any of you can as well. That's, I think, my 2 cents on the issue, and so I'd be interested to see if you guys have anything else to say.
Shawnee County's an urban county. We're not like every county in Kansas. And you're right, wind and solar are 2 different animals, and to lump them together, that's kind of a tough order for me. There's so much to consider, especially with wind. You have height restrictions, you have setbacks, you have flicker, you have decommission. What happens when the thing is no longer used? What do you do about the wind blades that have to be replaced every so often? And then there's storage. How are you storing that energy when the wind's not blowing or the sun's not shining? Does this mean big batteries somewhere? And then that presents other problems. So, to look at this for a year is not a problem in my mind at all. I think we need regulations in place or see if we're going to have it at all. I just don't know that we want to just run into anything real fast. Like I said, we are not the same as like a Lincoln County, something like that. When you look at what regulates where a wind solar farm should be,
they're usually by transmission lines, so that kind of restricts where they can be as well. So it's not like something that's gonna be all over the county if you did have. But, I don't know, I think we just need to study this more and take a good hard look at it.
In the last decade, Shawnee County has undertaken the following. A first comprehensive plan. Prior to a comprehensive plan, Shawnee County had no direction as a development. This yielded us having urbanized areas next to manufacturing plants, next to farms. We had no direction as to what areas we were designating for what, and there was a lot of work that went into a comprehensive plan, and there was a lot of controversy about a comprehensive plan. Then we took on code. Within the last decade, Shawnee County had no code for building. Anybody could declare themselves a builder, put a couple of pieces of wood together and call it a house. It seems silly for us, and we kind of chuckle a little bit, but to look at where we've come from in the last decade. When we look at major manufacturers who have standards for their manufacturing plants, they want to know with certainty that what they build today won't have to be torn down tomorrow. And when we look at solar, much as the director of the Planning Commission said, if we adopt regulations that are in controversy or not compatible with what is already built, they're going to have to decommission, rebuild, redesign. So I think it's better for Shawnee County to have a uniformity in rules. I think that we need to have the ability for us to have a set of rules to operate from. And if there is going to be a deviation from those rules, being able to clearly identify why that deviation is necessary. Because there are some times when deviations from rules are necessary. But in this case, I think that we have had 2 solar applications so far. Shawnee County has been dipping its toe into solar farms, and so it is important for Shawnee County to have a set of regulations and rules and expectations that we work from. It will take time. I know that a year seems like a long time. If I was to say that you have to sit in this room for 1 year, that may seem like an eternity. But if I was to say that we are going to look at the lifespan of Shawnee County and the future of lifespan of Shawnee County, 1 year is not an unreasonable request. So for that reason, I am in favor of the moratorium for, as Mr. Galbraith said, to be able to look at and adopt regulations as to how we are going to promote or regulate solar farms within Shawnee County. So at this time, I would make a motion for a 1-year moratorium for the Shawnee County Planning Commission.
Point of order.
Oh, yes, sorry.
So the agenda item, this is a home rule resolution. And I had talked with the counselor prior to the meeting, and because it's a home rule resolution, we have a commission rule that this has to be, they have to have first reading and a second reading.
Oh.
Because it's only a commission rule, we could waive that requirement if I'm,
Our organizing resolution 2024-1 has a sentence right in there that says this requirement may be overridden by a simple majority vote of the Board of County Commissioners in open session.
All right.
So you would have to have a separate and distinct motion to override and then a motion to yea or nay.
okay.
Thank you for that. I got a little ahead of myself. I know we're all a little discombobulated this morning. So, all right, so let's back up. I withdraw my motion from the floor, Madam Clerk. I have not made a motion since I didn't get all the way through it. Let's start with, maybe I should have, what I meant to do was turn this over to our county counselor again. I know you've kind of started to advise us legally. How do we proceed from here?
You just need a simple motion to override the requirement to have 2 readings of a home rule resolution.
And then at that point, then we would be free to do what?
Make a motion to approve, motion to defer, motion to disapprove.
Okay.
Any of the above.
All right. In that case, then, let's start with, I will make a motion to waive our rules as regarding a first and a second reading for a home rule resolution. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. Then I will make a motion for a 1-year, implementing a 1-year moratorium on all limited community scale and commercial utility scale solar energy conversion systems and projects in all zoning district classifications within the unincorporated portion of Shawnee County.
Did you get all that, Madam Clerk?
It's from the, it's right from the agenda.
Home Rule
It's a long
Resolution-
motion.
You mean Home Rule Resolution 24-4, is that what you're
Yes,
talking about?
yes, I just read it right from there.
If you could say Home Rule Resolution 24-4 would be good.
I will say that then.
Okay.
Did you say?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I can second that.
So this is a approval of Home Rule Resolution HR 2024-4. Motion made by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? It passes 3-0. All right. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Under planning, item B2, planning, public hearing and consider approval of Home Rule Resolution HR 2024-5, first reading, wind energy conservation system project ban.
Good morning, Commissioners. Joni Fedani, Director of the Planning Department. So item number 2 is now the consideration of our wind energy conversion system and project ban. This again would be an amendment to our Shawnee County zoning regulations, which would prohibit the wind energy conversion systems listed in all zoning district classifications within the unincorporated portion of Shawnee County. Again, I would point you to the staff report and the resolution for the specific definitions of what those two items mean. My purpose on here should not be here. I forgot to take that one off. The purpose of this would be to ban, not to do what was from the moratorium, which was conduct research. So I apologize about that. To review the details, everything that I said in the last public hearing applies here. In regards to it being legislative action, in regards to the commission's ability to take action. I would only point out a couple of differences with the timeline. We have not had any wind energy systems come before us before, so that's different from the solar. The prior planning director did come to you in early 2022 to make a presentation on wind energy conversion systems. He did so as a presentation before a BCC meeting, and I believe that there was some direction to look into wind regulations at that time. Shortly thereafter, I took office, and then we went through the process with the solar farm regulations and then started our review on both wind and solar. Again, in December 2023, the Planning Commission made a motion to consider the prohibition on wind. We did also have a public hearing on this matter, May 13, 2024. We had 19 people that got up to speak on that night. In regards to the staff findings, I believe that there is a lot of really important information in my staff report. I spent a lot of time putting that together with very specific reasons why we are where we're at today. And I don't feel it's necessary to go through that step by step. And so if everybody could read through that, or I hope has read through that, it tells you why I believe that this prohibition is necessary. As such, my staff findings are that a comprehensive review of the existing conditions, characteristics of the county, and suitability of use has been done. Preserving natural, historical, and rural landscapes of Shawnee County, maintaining agricultural farm ground and natural environmental constraints, and protecting the airspace and hazard zones of Shawnee County are all priorities of our comprehensive plan. Protecting the floodplain is a priority of not only the comprehensive plan, but the Shawnee County floodplain management regulations as well. Protecting the existing patterns of residential growth and development in Shawnee County is a priority of not only the comprehensive plan, but the Shawnee County zoning regulations. Protecting the health, welfare, and general well-being of the citizens of Shawnee County is a priority of the county and the Shawnee County zoning regulations. As such, my findings are that commercial utility scale wind energy conversion systems and projects do not comply with those priorities and goals at this time. Limited community scale wind energy conversion systems and projects also do not comply with the Shawnee County priorities and goals at this time. The Planning Commission did vote to recommend approval of my recommendation 5-0. Again, we had a lot of phone calls, a lot of petitions, and many emails, and the 19 public comments at the public hearing on May 13. My recommendation at this time is for the Board of County Commissioners to approve the ban or approve the prohibition of the wind energy conversion systems and projects as set forth. And I will stand for any questions.
Questions for Mr. Donnie regarding wind?
I can think of.
Johnny, just a couple of questions. It was mentioned earlier that there have been no wind applications, as we were talking about solar. Have there been any wind applications made to the Planning Commission or Planning Department?
There have been no applications made to the Planning Department. However, there are leases in Shawnee County from wind companies for something. We don't know what. Those leases have been in place since, I believe, 2017, 2019, so they're long-standing. I don't know if additional leases have come up over the years, but I do know that there are some in southern Shawnee County at this time. I did get contacted by a wind company shortly after we began this process, and they had been hearing our public hearings. They had been seeing, or not the public hearings, but the Planning Commission meetings and statements that I had been making about not having any applications in Shawnee County. And so they contacted me directly and they said, we are the company, or we are one of the companies that has leases, and we're here, we've been studying this area. My understanding is that they weren't necessarily wanting to put a wind farm up in Shawnee County, but use our area maybe more for research for a surrounding county. But there's the potential that it could come in the door at any point in time.
Okay. As we are out in the community and talking with individuals, or individuals are speaking with us, reoccurring themes emerge. That Shawnee County is an urbanized county, that Shawnee County has a lot of airports, that Shawnee County has a lot of air regulations, that Shawnee County, just by its topography, would not be very conducive to wind. Are any of those accurate, or is that just people making statements that just don't have any factual basis to them?
Every single one of those items are accurate, and they are a part of my staff recommendation of why we got to where we're at. My point that I made at the Planning Commission and I can make today is that this is not me asking you to prohibit wind because wind is bad. It's not that alternative energy is bad. It's not that it's not suitable somewhere. This is the proposal for the prohibition of wind in Shawnee County because it is not suitable for Shawnee County based on the characteristics of our county.
Okay. If Shawnee County was to undertake a ban, is that something that would be prohibitive for the rest of time, or is that something that could be changed at a later point?
It's a law, and laws can be changed. So it is a ban. It's a ban that would ban it for now. But if at any point in time someone came forward and said, you know what, I want to reconsider this, it absolutely can be reconsidered, a new public hearing and a new vote.
Okay. Any other questions? One last question that I have then. Would it be beyond the ability of the Planning Department to look at adopting regulations as to wind, knowing that there's very few areas that it could apply, much in the same way that you were adopting regulations as it relates to solar?
Yes, of course. I'm here to do the job on behalf of Shawnee County, and absolutely, if that were to be the request, then we would do that. My take on it, though, is that there aren't areas suitable for wind in Shawnee County. And so we could sit down and spend the time to look at regulations and go through that process. But I feel like at this point in time, it's really a waste of time because I just don't think that they're suitable for Shawnee County right now.
Okay. So at some later point, if the County Commission Planning Department was looking at an update of a comprehensive plan, and part of the comprehensive plan is identifying different areas for development, whether it's agricultural, manufacturing, whether it's residential. Is that something that the Planning Department or Planning Commission, again, looking at an update of a comprehensive plan, might identify these are areas for solar, these are areas for wind?
It actually, that's exactly correct. That's exactly what we would need to do. I think that if that, we have to come around and look at our comprehensive plan again. It was approved in 2018, and it's been a few years. If at some point during that process, as it's reviewed every so often, that it is identified that there are areas where this would be appropriate, then we would make that move on the comprehensive plan and say we found some areas that we feel are suitable, and then you could take the next step then to say, well, now we would like to reconsider these options.
Okay, all right. Any other questions based on that? Okay.
Oh,
Yep,
real
yes.
quick. So, we heard about the Douglas County solar array. We've got neighboring counties that are not urban, that have a lot of land, Douglas, Osage, Wabunsee. Like, do they have any regulations in any of those counties that you know of right now?
Absolutely. So Douglas County has approved solar regulations, and they're in the process of looking at their wind regulations. I don't believe that the Douglas County wind regulations have been finalized yet. That's been a process that they've been working on for a couple of years. And I have had communications with them in regards to both their wind and solar. Osage County has considered it, and they did a ban on wind for sure, and I believe also solar, but I don't know that for sure. Pottawatomie County they have ended up doing a long-range moratorium on solar, but they fall within the tall grass moratorium for wind, and so they don't have the option of doing wind. Wabunsee County historically did a ban on wind. If you recall, there's a case, Zimmerman versus Wabunsee County, and that they did their ban on wind, but they also now fall within the tallgrass moratorium. I would point out actually that Shawnee County does have a section of the tallgrass moratorium in our county as well, where we are not allowed to have wind based on state resolution that the governor put into play years and years ago, and then has been reconsidered several times and reapproved. Really, Jackson and Jefferson County north of us, I don't believe that they have regulations, although I've heard inkling that there may be some solar consideration going on up there. But pretty much surrounding us to the west, to the south, and the east, there are regulations that have been considered and either banned or approved.
Yep. Anything else? All right. Is there a motion?
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Motion to open public hearing by Commissioner Mays.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. We are now in a public hearing. As the same order as before, all of those that would want to speak in favor of a ban on a wind development, you may come to the podium and speak. Those in favor of a ban.
Hello again, I'm Karine Kane, and I live south of Auburn. I appreciate the opportunity this morning to speak regarding the ban on wind turbines. What I'd like to say is last fall, when we first heard of the turbines possibly being around Shawnee County, it had to do not only with what they had sent around for the zoning for all of us to remark on the survey, but also I have friends that live southwest of Shawnee County, southwest Auburn, and they were made aware of something that they found on their property of over about 170 acres. That was a survey of wind and birds, like wind speed and bird population on their new property that was positioned. They actually called a number on the box and were told that's what it was. They further found that many of the neighbors surrounding them, largely that did not live on the properties but just had large properties available, were those folks that had signed the wind leases with these companies, hoping to make big bucks on their property. The wind companies get millions, billions of dollars of subsidies that come in to help them put up these installations, which are over 600 feet. This is what you would be looking at in your property, even if someone had it, on their property. You would see the red blinking lights, as were mentioned here as well. I did massive research starting in October and found that my position certainly was that I did not want wind in our county and Shawnee County, largely for the reasons that Joni has shared, that we are an urban county. We have so many reasons for classification that this would not be appropriate in our county. And furthermore, this really is not an issue regarding your belief or disbelief in climate change. It's not really a position of whether you support wind turbines or you don't support wind turbines. Like myself, who did a lot of research, I'm sure those of you on the commission have also done a lot of research and understand the millions of dollars it takes to put them up, the millions it takes to operate, the billions it takes to dismantle, and then where do you put them? There are very few locations in the United States where you can actually take these large blades. They're now becoming large blade graveyards, basically. I have friends who have large areas of land in western Kansas where many of these went up years ago. Some of those are falling down. What's happening to neighbors around them is they are having to then keep them in their pasture lands. There's no one there to pull them out. These things are huge. They're massive. They're in their pasture lands. It's destroyed. We know about the fires that can happen. We know about the potential for lightning. Of course, the endangerment for certain birds, things that can be affected. A good friend of mine that lives in Waverly, who has the turbines across from her location that were put up that are about half the size of what those around here would be. She and her husband recently experienced a time when all the turbines were quiet. There was no wind, and they found the peace that they used to have. That's very rare if there's wind. You're going to hear these turbines constantly with the turbine noise that you're hearing. You're also seeing the turbine flashes in the home, which they're getting, and they've gotten used to it, and it's something that they can't enjoy living with, and yet homes in their areas aren't selling, so that's not an option. But they heard the peace and quiet of the birds, the crickets, the frogs, the things that they used to enjoy with country living. These are the reasons why, turbines would not be appropriate in Shawnee County. So whether you believe in climate change or not, whether you believe that you should replace fossil fuels or not, we have to look at what our county offers its residents, why we've moved here, why we've loved living here, and why we want to continue living here on the properties that we so love and enjoy. I also have some additional petitions. As you know, we have a group of us that have pulled together throughout Shawnee County and all of the areas. We've gone out and done petitions by hand, shopping centers, door knocked, whatever we could do. We're not backed by millions of dollars worth of money from a large company, but we're a group of citizens that do love and care about our county. And so we now have 13 additional petitions to bring the grand total to 1,221 against industrial wind, as well as 1,202 against industrial solar. And this does cover 31,072 acres belonging to property owners in Shawnee County. We are asking that you do put the ban on the industrial wind and support the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. I will also say that for the few of us that are able to be here today, there are hundreds and hundreds that support the ban, over 1,000, support the ban, 1,221, in addition to people who were not comfortable signing a petition, quite honestly. They didn't want their name on a petition, but they said, please make sure we don't get this in our county. We don't want to see that in our county. So I do ask you to please support the ban. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wanting to speak in favor of the ban? Okay. Those wanting to speak against a ban? Come on up. You come on to. Yes.
Jan Davis. I own a business in Shawnee County. I spend most of my time in Shawnee County. I live in Osage County, 7/10 of a mile from the Osage, from Shawnee County line. Just a couple of quick comments. 4 to 5 years ago, when wind first started pushing in Osage County, I did deep. It was at the start of COVID, and that's what I did all day, was research on wind, mostly on wind. And I could talk a long time about different websites and how those have been propagandized, and you have to know who is saying what you're researching online. Google, you can't depend on Google for that information. But, and I still have listened to communities, especially in.
We're going to stand, we have a policy in Shawnee County that after an hour, we stand. Ms. Lewis at the back, our HR director, promptly reminds me that, it's good for us to get some circulation, so we're not all sedentary. So you can continue.
Thanks. My watch reminds me I need to do that. Did deep dive research and listened to and watched a lot of rural New York, which, if you've ever been there, it looks just like Kansas. They have been fighting solar, mainly solar, for the last 15 years. I still subscribe to the Buffalo News to see the problems that they have there. The battery fires, which are nightmares. There's one burning now that's been burning for over 2 weeks. So that's a whole nother thing. But on the wind, I should have written this down. On the wind, I've done a lot of deep research, and one of the power company websites that I often read, their newsletters for the industry, said that across the nation there are wind turbines installed that are 111,000 megawatts of power. And when they project, we have 111,000 megawatts. But first quarter, actual numbers was actually 430 megawatts, not 111,000. They're unreliable. I think you're making a good decision for Shawnee County. They are interested in Osage County, is where the fight starts with the meeting tonight. Again, we banned them, but they're still working in Osage County. One other thought, if it'll come to mind, it won't come to mind. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now, any individuals wanting to speak against or in opposition to a ban on wind?
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Jackson Woods. I'm a Topeka resident, and I'm here to speak against the proposal to ban wind energy in Shawnee County. I'm doing this because a ban would be a short-sighted, extreme measure that is not in our interest. Our society needs to transition to relying on renewable energy rather than fossil fuels, both because fossil fuels are limited and they're expensive and their cost is increasing, and also because burning them is causing climate change and releasing pollutants into our atmosphere, our land, our water. And I appreciate the discussion from the planning director beforehand. That brings a lot of facts into the discussion. And it's absolutely true that we have a permit request system in place. And I appreciate that it's been established that there have been no requests yet. And I don't think voting against this proposal will suddenly cause them to submit a bunch that we can't manage without a chance for examination. Because of this, a ban is the most extreme proposal that we can make on this topic. Our society will continue to need energy, and we have options on where to get that energy from. We have fossil fuels like natural gas, coal, and we have renewable energy like wind and solar, banning wind energy simply takes away one of those options from us in our toolkit. That leaves us worse off. I understand the concerns that we don't have regulations on wind energy right now. And like, even though I don't live in the unincorporated area, I still receive energy from places outside of Topeka. We don't make all our energy in Topeka. The solutions put in reasonable regulations with community input. It's not a ban. Even if we don't build wind energy projects in our county, we can follow other Kansas counties' examples of regulations, and then we can be a model for other urbanized counties as well. A ban stigmatizes wind energy with little reason for doing so, and it adds our name onto the list of Kansas counties that ban wind energy, which discourages our neighbors from building it too, if we want to get energy from them, as we continue to do so with other sources as well. This makes us look backwards, not forwards, and I worry that it would discourage other investment in the county and state, especially people of my generation, where climate change and environmental conservation is one of our top concerns. That generation continues to gain more influence as we become educated and graduate from our universities. That's going to influence where they're investing in. I also believe that we want our energy rates to stay stable or lower and not increase. If we continue to rely on fossil fuels, those will increase. The price of fossil fuel energy production is greater than that of renewable energy sources. And this is in addition to the costs associated with the emitted pollutants that adversely affect our health and environment, including our air, land, and water. Many of the fossil fuel plants we get energy from are reaching the end of their lifetime. So we need to be ready for the transition. Rather than building new plants, we need to be ready to build the wind turbine solar farms with regulations that we put into place. It's smart economics to stop this ban. It would be better to have a moratorium like the solar one that you just passed. And I appreciate the planning department's report. It's well written. I just disagree with the conclusion. I think this is especially important considering the amount of misinformation that has surrounded this topic, especially at the last planning commission meeting. So thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great day.
Thank you.
Jonathan Smith, 2526 Southeast Colorado. I'm not going to repeat myself too much. All of the concerns that keep companies from building here in Shawnee County, the fact that we've had no applications at all here in Shawnee County, these reasons show me that a ban is not necessary. And as much as we are legally saying that reversing a ban is possible, it is incredibly difficult. Much more difficult than just writing regulations. And we can get up and reference the possibilities of catastrophic failure in wind turbines, but failures happen in all energy industries. Coal trains derail, oil train cars derail, oil pipelines leak millions of gallons of oil into natural landscapes. Natural gas or methane plants leak odorless, colorless gas into the atmosphere, only trackable by $70,000 cameras. And of course, all small, localized failures of wind turbines pale in comparison to the dramatic, deadly, and economically devastating consequences of climate change. We can try and come up with reasons to push this down the line and make our children deal with these problems, but by then it is far, far too late. I also went around trying to grab signatures, but as a truck driver working 60-hour work weeks, I had to take off work to be here. I don't have a team of retirees able to walk around on my behalf. I was only able to gather 71 signatures in opposition to this ban and moratorium. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, Vicki Arnett, I won't repeat myself much either. But I do want to say that the League of Women Voters and the Climate Study Committee are opposed to the ban. And primarily, you know, it's only the ban that we're opposed to. I think that everybody in this room is in agreement. There are places that need to be protected in Shawnee County. And we would prefer that it's done through regulation rather than a ban. You know, I believe that the economic input is, the economic consequence of a ban is fairly clear from the planning director's testimony in terms of the companies that are present now to try to do research and development on wind. Does that mean that they will leave and move on to another county that does not have a ban? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Mark Galbraith. I'm opposed to the ban and think we ought to put a moratorium on wind, as we've just agreed to do with solar. I certainly appreciate all the work that the planning director has done, and I understand that she's, I think, made her recommendation based on existing priorities that the county has established, maybe mostly in the comprehensive plan, but elsewhere. But I still wonder if we should take a deeper dive, just look at what land is available. Could it be used for solar? Maybe to write regulations and let developers decide based on those regulations whether or not they could come here and make a go of it with wind. I think there are good models out there. There are a number of counties in Kansas that have already written regulations. I understand they're stringent, but they're not so stringent that they detracted developers. So models we could look at and perhaps use. And we know now that there are at least some developers who have leased, I guess they're developers, but someone's leased land with the idea that maybe they could come in and develop wind. And as we've heard, that often those developers want to see regulations in place before they invest. So again, regulation seems like the appropriate way to go. And while I'm not speaking for them by any means, I know, just for an example, the Nature Conservancy has put together a tool called Site Alternatives Right. That's what it's called. It's designed to be used by people like you, by local governments, by counties primarily, I assume, so that they can look at a map on their county in this tool and help them decide, is there a place for wind or solar or some other alternative? There may be more than one tool like that, but that's one I'm aware of. So I would encourage maybe a moratorium to do regulation as opposed to an outright ban. I don't know why we would ban it outright when it's a viable, proven viable alternative to burning fossil fuels. It just seems a shame to make that kind of decision at this point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Kelly Majorkirth, and I have been a Shawnee County resident for most of my life. I am on the Topeka Sustainability Advisory Board, and I have a degree in environmental studies from the University of Kansas. This is simple to me, and I'm going to be very brief. A ban is not necessary, and it sends the wrong message to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other individuals wanting to speak in opposition to a ban? You come on up.
Not opposition.
You're wanting to speak in favor of a ban?
Correct.
Okay. We had that earlier, but I don't know if you were here when we had that or not. If you come on up, we'll have.
No, that's okay.
Okay, all right. All right. Any other, yes, come on.
My thought bubbled up, can I
Oh,
say it correctly? Jan Davis. 2 to 3 years ago, when Osage County banned wind and solar, at that time, we were the 22nd Kansas county to ban wind. And since that time, I know that Franklin has also banned wind, and I believe Anderson County has also banned wind. So you are not the first to do this. And I've lost track of out west if any of those have banned it also. But
Okay, thank you. Okay. Pleasure of the commission.
I'll make a motion that we close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing by Commissioner Mays. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. So public hearing is now closed. Discussion on the home rule resolution.
Counselors, this is another one, if we wanted to vote on it, we'd have to waive the first.
Correct, sir.
Okay. All right.
And then in that same vein, are there any recommendations from the counselor's office as it relates to this item when we're talking about a ban as opposed to a moratorium?
The risk of litigation is slightly higher with the ban, and when we do that, we commonly take more care in how we do the written part of this. And Ms. Dadani has done a very good job with her home rule resolution. The only thing that we might do, and we don't have to do it today, your choices are obviously to vote in favor, vote in denial, or defer it. A deferral gives us a chance to perhaps bump up we're going to do a document called findings of fact. It doesn't have to be done on the same day you vote. It does not. But you'll probably see however you vote, particularly if you go against the Planning Commission's vote. If you do that, we will draft a different set of findings of fact. So the findings of fact will tell along. They'll probably be on a consent agenda in a couple of weeks. Again, it depends on how you vote. But other than that, those are your choices.
Okay. Discussion of the commissioners?
Once again, I'll just say, I think there's a huge difference between solar and wind, and we are an urban county, and wind is just not a good fit here, I don't believe. And I don't think it sends the wrong message to other, I mean, it sounds like about a fourth of the counties in Kansas have already banned wind. There's plenty of places in Kansas where they have wide open spaces, and it's a better fit. It's interesting, I never heard anybody today speak about nuclear energy, clean, good energy, reliable source. But anyway, no, I just don't think it's a good fit at this time, and with the technology they have. And you know, I've heard of fires that they have in some of these wind generators where we have a lot of grassland and whatnot. I don't know how you put one out. It could be a real mess. Also, there's a lot of regulations with roads, and they have to actually build roads and people's fields just to get these cranes and these giant pieces of equipment in to put these together. It's a different animal, so I would be in favor of this ban.
So I talked to a lot of county commissioners in other counties. Some have wind energy, some don't. The ones that do, some have great success stories about the revenue that's being created for their county and payment in lieu of taxes and whatnot. Others have nightmare stories to tell about the roads getting torn up with the implementation. They're not getting the revenue that was promised, that kind of thing as well. There is an infrastructure strain that happens when these get installed. Also, you know, as has been mentioned many times, I mean, we are an urban county. We've got 6 airports in Shawnee County, both public and private. We have 3 hospitals that fly Life Flight helicopters. We have helicopter traffic back and forth from Fort Riley to Forbes all day, every day. I think if you were to look at a map and look at the proximity of all these airports, it leaves very little land in Shawnee County that can actually be developed for this. And at that point, I don't know that it's worth it. I think that the simplest thing to do at this point would be to implement a ban. And I'm not commenting on, you know, the benefits of wind or the drawbacks of wind. I just feel that it's not appropriate for our county, given the circumstances. And if it means anything, I would also vote for a ban on coal plants at some point too, if that came before us, because it's also probably not appropriate for our community at this point. So I feel like, given the circumstances, the evidence that's been presented, I think the Planning Commission took a lot of input on this, on multiple nights. A lot of hours were spent looking into it, and this is the conclusion they came up with. And you know, typically, we follow the recommendations of the Planning Commission. So that's probably where I'm headed right now.
For decade upon decade, Shawnee County had a coal-producing energy plant next to Tecumseh. That coal-producing plant was recently decommissioned. I don't recall anybody making huge overtures for or against that decommissioning of that power plant. But at the time of its impact, the only thing that I did hear was the impact on the economics for this area of Tecumseh and how that was going to affect their tax base for the loss of that revenue. When we look at solar, we have one set of rules that we're looking at. When we look at wind, we have a different set of rules or expectations that we're looking at. Unfortunately, with wind, I think this is a solution in search of a problem. We don't have a lot of areas that are ripe for wind. As Mr. Donnie said, as Commissioner Mays said, as Commissioner Rippon has all indicated, and I think as we all are aware, there are very few areas of Shawnee County that would be appropriate for a wind production in Shawnee County. So this is really a solution in search of a problem. And I don't know that a ban is appropriate. I believe that if we were to look at it, the most appropriate thing is to have maybe a moratorium, to have this be a part of a comprehensive plan as we update our comprehensive plan. Again, it's 2018 since our last comprehensive plan. It's time to start the next process, and I reminded of how unenjoyable the first process was. So I'm sure that the updating will be more enjoyable. But at this time, I don't believe that a ban is the appropriate measure for Shawnee County. I believe that if we were to take any action, a moratorium would be a better plan to develop what rules or expectations there are. So I'm in opposition to the Home Rule Resolution 2024-5. I understand from just hearing the statements of my commissioners, I may be in the minority on that, but I want to have those on the record as my statements. So, pleasure of the commission.
Would we have to make a motion to waive the, that would be
Yes.
part, would we do that first?
I would do it first, yes.
Okay, I will move that we waive the first reading and go right to the
Right to a motion.
Right to a
Second.
motion.
Motion to waive home rule regulation of home rule reading of first and second by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That passes 3-0. Now, the motion of the commission.
I would move that we ban wind energy.
So you're asking for the approval of Home Rule Resolution 2024-5.
That's right.
Motion to adopt Home Rule Resolution 2024-5 made by
Second.
Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. It passes then 2-1. Commissioner Cook in dissent. I'd like to thank everybody for showing up and having your voices heard, and thank you for engagement in the public process. So, Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item C, Public Works. Number 1, consider awarding a bid to Mid-States Materials for up to 4,000 tons of clean crushed limestone at a unit cost of $24.35 per ton for use in chip seal overlays for Monmouth Township and certain Shawnee County roads. This material will ultimately be paid for using Monmouth Township Board road funds and the 2024 Public Works operating budget.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. We received 4 bids for this clean, it looks like kitty litter, but it's clean limestone rock. We use it for chip seals in Monmouth Township historically. And we're going to start using the material on some chip seals for Shawnee County roads, especially those roads that have a lower traffic count. And the reason for that is, as we've discussed previously, is that lightweight aggregate is getting extremely expensive. Again, we received 4 bids. The bid submitted by Hams Incorporated, Perry, Kansas, was the low bid. But the problem is, we're working in southeast Shawnee County this year. So from a transportation and time standpoint, the best bid was submitted by Mid-States Materials because they will supply materials out of the Big Springs Quarry, which is right next door to where we'll be working. So with that, I look forward to your questions.
Questions?
No.
Motion?
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item C2, consider authorization and execution of contract C-196-2024 with Free State Electric Cooperative, Inc. for the relocation of electric power lines that are in conflict with the Shawnee County Road Improvement Project on Southwest Auburn Road between Southwest 29th and K4 Highway.
Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. We have a project coming up on Auburn Road between 29th and K4 Highway. Of course, that includes what I call a school roundabout on 29th Street. It will be the primary entry and exit point for that USD 437 facility. But before we can start construction, we have to do 2 things. We've got to get the utilities out of the way, and we need to buy some right-of-way easement. As far as the utilities go, this is the second request I've come before the commission looking for an agreement for relocation work. The first was water. This is for overhead power. Free State Electric has provided us a not-to-exceed estimate of approximately $139,000. This seems reasonable to me. It only covers that portion of their utility that is presently outside of our present right-of-way. I believe it's a reasonable estimate, and I hope that you will approve the agreement. I look forward to your questions.
Questions?
Well, Kurt, on the last item, you talked about the proximity to the quarry. Hopefully this one gets done quicker and easier because of the proximity to Free State Electric, which is just up the street. So
Good point.
there's no other questions. I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item C3, consider authorization and execution of contract C-197-2024 with One Gas, Inc. for the relocation of 8-inch gas lines that are in conflict with Shawnee County Road Improvement Project on Southwest Auburn Road between Southwest 29th and K4 Highway.
Kurt Niehaus, Director of Public Works. This should be the last of the utility relocation agreements. It's with One Gas, or Kansas Gas Service. It's the local, I think, subsidiary. In the case of Free State, they gave us a not-to-exceed amount, including contingency. Here, I've got an amount here that does not include a 20% contingency. Essentially, this is a not-to-exceed amount unless it needs to be exceeded. And I'm sorry for that. That's the best we can do at this time. I'm hoping that you will approve this agreement. And so it's important. It's important to get the utility out of the areas of the two roundabouts. And with that, I look forward to your questions.
Any questions?
You said this is the last of the utility relocations that we have to deal with?
Yes.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item D, Facilities Management. Number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-198-2024 for change order number 6 with Shawnee Company for the courthouse renovation project.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elda Henning, Director of Facilities Management. As read by the clerk, this is a request to approve a change order. The change order amount is $87,965. What I failed to put on the memo, which I apologize for, the original contract sum for the project was $14,483,333. With this change order, the new value will be $14,986,806. There is no extension of the contract at this time. And as mentioned earlier in the meeting, we are approximately at 82% of the project. Breaking that down, we have, when the project started, we divided the courthouse into 3 sections per floor. We are on the 3rd section, or moving to the 3rd section on 3rd floor, with the 4th floor's 2 sections being what the balance is for the project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Is this paid from project contingency fund?
It is being paid for out of owner contingency.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
No. I would move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon,
Second.
second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, Nelson. Our next item.
Item E, Department of Corrections. Number 1, request approval to create data analyst position for the department at a cost of salary and benefits of $83,267.06 to be paid from the detention and community corrections budgets.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I'm requesting a new position that would start in July. It wouldn't be, the total cost is, if it would be benefits, would be that amount of 80-some thousand, but it's just start for just this half the year. I'm not asking for any extra money this year for that. This is a position that we have needed for several years as we continue to do our stats for stepping up, but also as we've jumped into the endeavor with a lot of our community correction grants and grants at the corrections detention department. Stats are needed at a very high level, projections of our population, which has been very beneficial. We have had somebody that has been an intermittent, that has been doing this job and has been a tremendous asset to both community corrections and the Department of Corrections. 40% of this money, or this salary, would be paid out of community corrections. I'm working closely with Deputy Director Steve Willis on that. And so that money is already in for 2025 in the fiscal year 2025 budget for community corrections, and I'm not asking for any additional funds. What I will say is that the reduction in overtime that we have seen is allowing us to have a little bit of a buffer. And one thing that I will be meeting with Jennifer Sauer is that I fully expect to ask, in the past, we've asked for a 10%, I think it's 10% overtime. I'm not gonna ask for 10% overtime in our budget. It's gonna be a reduced percentage because we are filling positions. So this is a position that is very critical to our operation for our continued dashboards, projections, and most specifically for staffing and budgeting is going to be for our grants to be able to have the statistical foundation for that. So I stand for any questions you may have.
Questions?
You mentioned grants. Any possibility of this becoming grant funded at some point?
Totally, right now, some of it is with community corrections, but to be totally funded, we can look, it continues to look. We are looking at some things with the juvenile detention center to see if any of that money can be used towards that. Right now, we have not found any, but that does not mean we're not going to look, because I have both Steve, Tim, and Angela McCart, all of our deputy directors are working very closely with Jennifer and Andrea on any and every grant. And we're in the process of looking at 2 grants right now that are going to be extensive with there. But we will be looking at that, yes, sir.
And this position, It sounds like it's primarily going to be focused on the tracking of grants and.
It'll be, what
will
it'll
they
do
be
is for
doing
all the
applications
statistics,
and stuff
it'll
as
be,
well?
it'll work in conjunction with the applications. I have Steve and I have Tim that will be doing the applications with audit finance. This person here will be providing the statistical background for it and also be setting up and helping us with our statistical trends for budgeting and things like that. For example, he did the person who did our, like that, said you can expect off trends to have a 67% increase in adult population in the next 2 months. And that's the thing that I need to start helping with when it looks towards programming and our classification. Yes.
Questions? Motion?
Move for approval.
Well, second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item E2, request approval to reinstate 8 idle security line staff positions that have been vacant for more than 365 days per county resolution number 2024-19.
Good morning, Commissioners. Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. I've been working very closely with Human Resource, and I've been working very closely with Jennifer Sauer and the Audit Finance regarding the process of trying to get these positions off the idle list. As you know, that before we had the home resolution for being idle, these positions were just not funded. So in fact, because they weren't funded for and we didn't fill them, they got put on the idle list because they've been unfunded for so long. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't be filled. We have approximately 11 or 12 vacancies right now. I have 10 going through the process. I have no plan to fill these 8 this year. They're not funded unless we get to the point to where our budget could sustain it, or we do like we did last year, work with audit finance. This is just to be able to pull them off the idle list for 2025 and start getting us closer to the staffing that we need for the jail, and working closer towards the staffing for the behavioral health unit. That's going to be here. We plan to try to get our contracts in front of Rich here probably within the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to try to, our hope is to break ground in August, and that is going to, and right now we're in the process of our staffing plan, our policies, procedures, and everything, working with community leaders and everything for our behavioral health unit. But we've got to start getting closer to hiring those staff. I'm very confident that we'll be able to hire those in 2025. I'm not asking for additional staff in 2025. It's just to be able to get those positions off the idle list. And I'd be happy to stand for any questions you may have.
Questions?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? That motion passes 3-0.
Thank you very much.
Our next item.
Item E3, consider authorization and execution of contract C-199-2024, memorandum of understanding with Heartland Regional Alcohol and Drug Assessment Center for care, coordination, and recovery coach services for the clients of adult community corrections through fiscal year 2025 for $191,500 to be paid from state grant funds and fiscal year 2024 county funds. This is a continuation from the previous year.
Good morning, Commissioner. Steve Willis, Department of Corrections, Deputy Director for Community Corrections. Cindy, sorry for all the language there. That was a lot. This contract is an extension of last year's, and Community Corrections has worked for many years with Heartland Radac on drug and alcohol assessments and providing services for the probationers, adult probationers that are currently in our population. Last year, there was an increase with county funds of $114,000. So that money is currently in our budget to be used for this contract moving forward, along with our behavioral health grant, which is part of the state grant funds that we have. Community Corrections, 70% of our budget is through state grant funds, and so our fiscal year is when all of our MOUs and our contracts are renewed. So this is just the extension or the continued use of Heartland Radac to provide care coordination services for the felony probationers that we work with. Care coordination is a process of our officers working with Heartland Radak on identifying what risk levels a probationer might have and what services the community has available that might help them become a better citizen. And they work through that process together. And then the other position that they help with is a recovery coach. And that recovery coach is really focused on substance use disorders and works with them promoting a successful lifestyle without the use of drugs and alcohol. They provide programs within our office and assessments regarding drugs and alcohol and anything like that. So this contract, again, is just to extend and continue for this next year. And I'll stand for questions.
Questions?
I'm confused. Is this like a 2-year contract?
No, sir. It's a one, it goes each year. We have to renew it each
Year by year, but you just
Yeah.
renew it? Okay.
July to June.
All right.
All move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item F, Health Department, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-200-2024, an agreement between the Shawnee County Health Department and TARC, which will provide $23,000 to Shawnee County Health Department for providing in-home nursing services for a 1-year period from July 1, 2024 through June 30 of 2025.
Good morning, Commissioners. Missy Videndorf, Family Health Division Manager with the Health Department. Before you today is a request to enter into a contract with TARC to provide the home visitation services to our community, to developmentally delayed infants and toddlers. We bring this contract about every time this year, and it'll allow for one of our nurses to provide in-home nursing in partnership with TARC, and it's specifically their infant toddler services, which serve 0 to age 3. And this nurse will attend team meetings and serve as a resource and content expert, and will also help with evaluations to determine if the child is eligible for the services. We've been providing this service for many years. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Sounds like a very important service. I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item G, Audit Finance, number 1, consider authorization and execution of contract C-201-2024 to renew UMB Banking Services Contract C-224-2021 for a period of 2 years with a new expiration date of June 30, 2026.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. I have a piece of a voice today. So we consulted with the county treasurer and the county clerk, and we are wishing to just simply extend our current existing contract with UMB for banking services for taking advantage of the last renewal terms of our contract, bringing the expiration date out to the middle of 2026.
Any questions?
No, I'll move for approval.
Second. Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Cook. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next item.
Item H, Solid Waste, number 1, consider the request to create and fill a residential container maintenance position within the Solid Waste Department. Funding will come from the Solid Waste Operational Budget, which is user fee funded and not taxpayer supported.
Good morning, Commissioners. Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. This request is to create a new residential container maintenance position. As you guys might be aware, I have over 100,000 containers out there throughout Shawnee County. We have currently 2 gentlemen right now that's doing the maintenance and delivery. We'd like to create this position to be number 3. Primary duties would be working in the yard, just doing the maintenance and keeping our yard tidy, if you will. There are times that we get overrun with these containers and our yard looks like a war zone, and we had to bring in people on the weekends to help clean it up. So this is just a new position. This will be a bargaining unit position. It'll be bid, supported, and it has been run through both the bargaining unit and audit finance and human resources. So subject to your questions, gentlemen.
Questions?
I'd move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Rippon, second by Commissioner Mays. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you, gentlemen. Our next item.
Item I, Sheriff's Office, number 1, acknowledge a request from Sheriff's Office to open an Office Manager 2 position in the Records Unit. This request will fit within the Sheriff's Office existing 2024 budget.
Good morning, Commissioner. Shane Hubler, Shawnee County Sheriff's Office. This is to recreate a position that we've had historically in the past. That person retired several years ago. We're just hoping to put that position back in place, add for some succession planning, and be able to retain good quality employees.
Questions? I'll move for approval.
Second.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Cook, second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item.
Item J, number 1, consider approval of request to solicit bids for goods and services as needed for the City of Topeka CDBG and Dreams Grant, of which Parks and Recreation is this subrecipient responsible for administering activities of the program.
Good morning, Tim Laurent, Director for Parks and Recreation Department. So this is our continued process of working hand in hand with the City of Topeka on the Dream Grants project. We will be soliciting bids for a new slide at the Hillcrest pool, a walking path, and some mural installations at McKinley Park, and a walking path at Veterans Park over by Noto. So we will obviously come back to this board once we've solicited the bids and follow the purchasing policy. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Tim, in the past, there's been issues with the city grants and how it gets applied, especially post consolidation, which again, now we're almost we are past a decade into a consolidation. But so under the city grants, neighborhoods or neighborhood improvement associations are making the application for items within their community, right?
That is correct.
And they can do that independently of anything that Shawnee County Parks and Rec is doing within the park.
Well, yes. However, that was the issue that we had early on. The process has evolved over time. So now the city does a good job of getting the NIA and the county together to talk about these projects before granting the awards. So we're in on the beginning stages of the conversation.
All right. That was, again, a concern I wanted to bring forward, is that this is working in conjunction with the neighborhood and associations.
Correct.
So that you're working together as to these improvements.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then this is a request for being able to go out and estimate how much these things are going to cost?
Yeah, we'll go out for, we'll solicit bids, and then we'll come back to the board for final approval.
Okay. Any other questions?
No. I'll move for approval.
Motion to approve by Commissioner Mays.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Our next item.
Item J2, Board of Commissioners approval for the appointment of Ferry Harold to the Advisory Advocate Board at the recommendation of City Councilman Brett Kell, is requested to fill the vacant City District 5 position. Such appointments are per current advisory advocate bylaws.
Tim Laurent, Shawnee County Parks and Recreation Department. So yes, Ms. Harold would fill our vacant spot from the city in District 5. I have met Ms. Harold. She seems like she'd be a great fit, and we're excited to fill this vacancy.
And this is something that's approved by the commission, even though it's a city council appointment?
Correct. The Councilman Kale is making the recommendation, and then it lies on you to actually approve her appointment to the board, to the advisory board.
All right. Questions?
No, I'll move for approval, for appointment, I guess.
Motion to approve the appointment by Commissioner Mays.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rippon. All in favor say aye. All opposed? Passes 3-0. Thank you. Our next item.
Item 5, public comment.
Are there any individuals from the public that wish to comment on any item today? Seeing none.
Item 6, administrative communications.
This is an opportunity for any department head or Shawnee County employee to comment on any item.
Tim Laurent, Parks and Recreation Department. So you may have seen on social media yesterday that our mini train broke down, and I'm happy to report that the company that we bought the train from is on site right now, and we expect the train to be back up and running this afternoon. So I know our media post was a little bit vague, but yesterday we weren't quite sure how long the process would take, but looks like we'll be back up and running later this afternoon.
I know that that's going to be much needed and much appreciated
Yep.
this weekend.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. Dusty Nichols, Emergency Management. I just want to take an opportunity to thank the Counselor's Office, Ramsey's Automotive, our partners in the community, Topeka Forestry, of course, our emergency management team. There was a lot of people coming together to get a siren that was kind of overgrown with weeds, and we couldn't even get to it. So we had to do a little extra work to get there, but that siren is operational thanks to those people. And additionally, today, of course, heat indexes, we're in a heat advisory from 1 to 8 p.m. tonight. And we're talking 112 potentially, so please keep an eye out for anybody falling out. If you're out working, make sure you take your rest work cycles, take some breaks, stay hydrated. And of course, we have potential from strong storms tonight. They moved us to enhanced, which means they're increasing their confidence that we could have storms in our area. Of course, it's a widespread area, so we can't pinpoint where these things are going to be, so we need to be on our toes for winds from 50 to 72 roughly, a 2-inch hail, and a possibility of tornadoes. So, Kansas, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dusty.
Jennifer Sauer, Financial Administrator. I just want to remind everyone that we're about 2 weeks out from our next phase of the county budget. So starting on June the 27th and again on July 1st, we will be having our departmental budget hearings here in the BCC chambers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Bill Sutton, Shawnee County Solid Waste. Have two announcements today. First of all, in celebration of Juneteenth next Wednesday, the department will be closed, so that means our Wednesday customers will shift to Tuesday. So please, if you're a Wednesday customer, make sure you get your containers out Tuesday morning by 7 o'clock. And of course, if you were a Recycle Coach subscriber, you would know this because you got your notification this week, and you become a Recycle Coach subscriber by visiting our webpage and signing up for free. Whew. Second announcement is you may or may not be aware, but this Saturday is Free Dump Day at Rolling Meadows Landfill for any citizen or resident in Shawnee County. So if you have an amount of collected stuff at your house that you'd like to get rid of for free, just go out to Rolling Meadows Landfill, located at 7351 Northwest Highway 75, right across from mile marker 169, and from 7 till 12, and you can get rid of your stuff for free.
That's good.
Here.
Thank you.
Good morning, Brian Cole, Shawnee County Department of Corrections. Just want to remind everybody, we're in our second week of concluding our academy. It's going very well. We have 2 more weeks. One of them will be a full week of specific mental health and crisis intervention training, which will be very valuable to our staff. So that's going very well. I'll get you the graduation dates. And the last thing is that we work closely in our community, I guess the last few years, the contestants with the Fiesta Queens have always been at the courthouse with the construction, so we have been holding. The Queen allows them to do a fundraiser, so we're doing that tomorrow. We did it last week, which the food was very good, and so please, between 10 and 1 tomorrow, if you get an opportunity, come by, meet the Queen contestant, and also enjoy some outstanding food that's very reasonably cost. So just want to let you know.
Last Friday I went, it was excellent, so I anticipate this Friday will be excellent as well. Thank you. Any other administrative communications this morning? Commissioner Rippon? Oh,
Wait a minute.
I won't be able to do this next year, and I think you have a birthday on Tuesday, is that correct?
No, it's on Monday.
On Monday.
You can come over to our work session.
You're 0 for 2 on
You're
the last
welcome.
two birthdays.
On yours, I was doing you a favor because I knew I wasn't gonna be here the next week, but hey, I'm not coming back to sing you happy birthday next year.
Get the
But you
gavel.
do have and I won't be here at the work session, so
Oh.
would you all like to sing Chairman's happy birthday?
You are
Sing?
cordially invited to
Yeah,
the
you
work
are always
session.
invited.
Oh, I know. Everybody can sing except Jennifer because she wants to save her voice because she's got an operatic session later on this week. Commissioner, this is for you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Commissioner Cook. Happy birthday to you. And many more.
Ms. Beck, it's always a You know, that's in the training manual for
It
the
is.
clerk to be able to pull that off. So-
It is, it's a requirement. Yeah, I'm not coming back to sing happy birthday to anybody after this. So get your birthdays all between now and the end of the year, folks, sorry about that.
Commissioner Rippon?
I have nothing to add to that.
Commissioner Mays?
No, nothing I can think. Thank you.
I would note that we were notified of the passing of Rita Klein, former Shawnee County Treasurer. Very sad news to hear of her passing yesterday, and would like to take a moment just to recognize her passing. She did serve as Shawnee County Treasurer for 14 years. And so, just again, making that note, and our condolences to her family.
I did work with Rita Klein during my first term here, and she would appreciate this. No line, Rita Klein.
That's true.
No.
Absolutely. Madam Clerk, our next item.
Item 7, executive session.
There's not a need for an executive session today, so we are adjourned.